What is the Trump administration's plan for Venezuela? It seems like not even the administration really knows what it's doing. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. We're going to talk about all the bizarre stuff that has been coming out of the White House surrounding Venezuela, including some real weird shit. Let's get into it. Okay, so first off, let's buckle up for this one. This is from a couple days ago. The CIA, attempted to essentially bribe Maduro's pilot into flying the Venezuelan leader to U.S. sovereign territory, where he could be arrested and charged with a crime. It's not clear that there would even be enough evidence to charge him with a crime, right? Given that, again, there isn't enough evidence to charge the drug traffickers that are hit with drone strikes, or rather the drug boats targeted by drone strikes. It's not clear there's enough evidence to charge those people because some survivors were detained by the U.S. military and then they were just released without charge. So the idea that you could charge Maduro himself with drug trafficking is probably unlikely, but that doesn't matter. A federal agent had a daring pitch for Nicolas Maduro's chief pilot. All he had to do was surreptitiously divert the Venezuelan president's plane to a place where U.S. authorities could nab the strongman. In exchange, the agent told the pilot in a clandestine meeting, the aviator would be a very rich man. The conversation was tense and the pilot left non-committal, but providing the agent, Edwin Lopez, with his cell phone number, a sign he might be interested in helping the U.S. government. Over the next 16 months, even after retiring from his government job in July, Lopez kept at it, chatting with the pilot over an encrypted messaging app. The untold, intrigue-filled saga of how Lopez tried to flip the pilot sounds like a Cold War spy thriller. But, right, more broadly, the scheme reveals the extent and the slapdash fashion to which the U.S. has for years sought to topple Maduro, who it blames for destroying the oil-rich nation's democracy while providing a lifeline to drug traffickers, terrorist groups, and Cuba. Now, this month, of course, Trump confirmed that the CIA was conducting covert operations inside Venezuela, something that usually you don't want to do because, well, it's hard to unveil that you're doing a covert action when you just say it, right? And also, and that, though I want to be clear that there could be some 5D chess here where essentially if your goal is to make a strongman paranoid, what you say to him is, yo, all your people are ready to betray you at a moment's notice. And we are constantly trying to find ways to get inside your inner circle. So you make sure if you have suspicions about your inner circle, kill them right away. Get rid of them, right? That can really actually be pretty effective if you're a strongman. Of course, it plays into all of the stereotypes about the CIA overthrowing leaders of different countries for little to no reason, right? Now, Trump said he authorized this covert action, which, again, not something you usually say. Trump says, I authorized it for two reasons, really. He said, number one, they've emptied their prisons into the United States of America, in which is part of his theory that Venezuela released prisoners who became refugees, who then made their way into the United States, of which it seems like that's pretty limited. At least in my experience at DHS, you usually saw people who had served time in Venezuelan prisons, but they were very obviously political dissidents. They spent time in political prison, not like they hadn't killed somebody. They had, like, one woman was like, yeah, my husband is an opposition politician. He got disappeared. I got disappeared and roughed up. And once I got released, I fled the country. Duh. Okay. And then he says, the other thing is the drugs. We have lots of drugs coming in from Venezuela, and a lot of Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, which, again, is not true on a relative basis. Most of what comes out of Venezuela is cocaine, not fentanyl. And again, in the DEA's reports, the Venezuelan drug trafficking scale is so small that it doesn't even feature. It doesn't even get its own paragraph. It simply gets lumped under other South American countries. So this whole thing is kind of weird and really just continues to build this evidence that the Trump administration doesn't have policies, right? They love reality shows. And that is essentially what they're trying to turn the country into. Because according to another report, Trump is weighing a plan to seize Venezuelan oil fields, which is insane. Not just because it doesn't make any tactical sense, not because it doesn't serve the ultimate objective of reducing drug trafficking. In fact, what we saw in Afghanistan is that when you remove legitimate ways of making money, you actually incentivize criminal action even more, right? Destroying, for example, wheat fields increased poppy cultivation, and that's why the Taliban would often discourage wheat production in favor of poppy. And to be clear, poppy just made like 10 times as much. So the idea that maybe they're going to just seize oil fields, maybe they're going to topple the Maduro regime. This is something that other U.S. officials like Marco Rubio and Stephen Miller champion the idea that Maduro's removal is essential for U.S. interest in regional stability. But the Trump administration struggles because they actually need authorization. They need a congressional approval to do this sort of thing. They are technically supposed to have it for striking. Not technically, they are supposed to have it for striking these drug boats. But the U.S. just simply sort of, or rather the Department of Justice just made up this legal fiction that was like, well, technically these aren't hostilities. We're just bombing people, which is kind of absurd and really spits in the face of the constitutional mandate that key foreign policy decisions remain firmly in the hands, penned Senate approval, and oftentimes require congressional approval. So the whole thing is kind of right, like bizarre. But I think the real story, again, if you take away anything from this, it's that the administration still doesn't know what they're doing in Venezuela. They're just killing people for the sake of killing them. And that is the most troubling part of this, is that, you know, the administration is showing that they have a bizarre fetish, really, for violence. And that is what kind of keeps me up at night, at least, is this idea that you have a level of obsession with just killing people. And that we, the U.S. military, we spend $1 trillion taxpayer dollars a year on our military, and we use it to just like murk some drug boats. But at the same time, our real adversaries, China, Russia, and their ancillary countries like Iran and North Korea, they just get to run amok. And it's kind of insane, especially North Korea, especially China, especially Russia. We spend $1 trillion a year to murk sink some boats. Like, guys, listen, if you're paying somebody trillions of dollars to sink a boat, I'll do it for $1 billion. Just give me a drill, right? So again, this whole thing is, there is no policy, and that is part of the goal. The goal is to create a reality show to, unfortunately, farm us all for engagement, really, to eat our attention so that we forget about things like the Epstein files or the fact that the congressional representative from Arizona still hasn't been seated. Real scandals, right? Real problems. And the thing is that sometimes you work so hard to distract people that you end up creating a problem bigger than the original distraction. And that's kind of where we're spiraling into. Does even the fig leaf of congressional approval for war, for American military action, does it even exist anymore? Is Congress willing to assert even the barest shred of its authority, or does Congress exist solely as a rubber stamp for the president, which is what Putin's State Duma does? Technically, they have a bunch of power to pass laws, but because Putin fully controls the system and controls every person who enters and exits the Duma, their role is solely to promote Putin's propaganda and operationalize his intent. And that's obviously not what we want for our country, and that's not a functioning democracy. Anyway, guys, become a member of Combat Vet News. Support me, support the channel, get access to uncensored combat footage going back to the start of the Ukraine war. And best of all, you can become a member just right here on YouTube. Just hit that Become a Member button down below, and you'll get access. So thanks to our Colonel tier members, GMAT Club, Henry Russier, James Porsche, Paul, Peter Fucci, and all of our Lieutenant tier members. Couldn't do it without you guys. See you in the next one. Cheers.